Something that I think we all need to learn right now is that other people and circumstances do not create how we feel, and they do not create what we think. Our brains offer us ideas that come from circumstances and what other people say and what they do, but those offerings are based on our own story and experience, which are entirely different than the person who said something or the thing that happens around us. But the problem I think that we're all struggling with right now is that so many of us still believe that other people cause what we think and what we do and what we say and how we feel. And we have got to understand that that is not true. Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Art of Managing Your Brain podcast. I am Dr. Charlie Hornes. I am a board-certified, clinically trained spiritual counseling provider, as well as a master-certified thought work strategist. And I'm super excited about this topic today because there's so much going on right now. There's so much difficult conversations that aren't being had. There's so much miscommunication. There's so much high energy around what we're saying and how we're feeling about what we're saying, what other people are saying. And I thought maybe I would just do a, episode about how our thoughts and our feelings have every single thing to do with how we hold our conversations out in the world, and how other people don't have to impact how we feel about ourselves and them and the world just because of the words they choose to say. And so I want to talk about emotional maturity and immaturity and kind of piece that out for you so that you can see exactly what's happening in your brain when you have identified somebody as like the enemy or the villain, right? Because they don't agree with what you agree with. They don't think what you think. They don't say what you think is right. And that's really causing a whole lot of issues. And so let's talk about exactly what our brain is doing, why it's doing it, what other people's brains are doing, why it's doing that, and how we can address this. So let's get into it.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornes. I'm a doctorate level, clinically trained and certified spiritual counselor and a master certified thought work strategist. I work with high functioning women who are tired of saying, I'm fine, when they know they're not. If you're exhausted from being the one who's holding it all together while quietly falling apart, this show is for you. Welcome to the Art of Managing Your Brain. Let's go.
All right. And now let's get into this week. Other people should be allowed to say whatever they want to say. I wish that people would be kind. I wish that people would be more generous with their word. I wish that people would not identify other people immediately as an enemy and start an attack. But unfortunately, since we live in the created world and since we all default to our survival instincts, even in 2025, and since our survival brains are made to criticize. Now, why is that? Let me just do a little tangent here. Your survival brain, if you go back to tribal times, to use the word in its proper context, as always, if let's say your community needed to build a fence to keep out the saber-toothed tiger. Now, I'm being hyperbolic, as ministers are, to create illustration, because I'm not talking about an actual situation that's real, okay? You're going to follow me down an absolutely imaginary story to make a point, which is typically what ministers do. I mean, Jesus did it with parables all the time. So if your job is to work with a team in your community to build a fence to keep out the saber-toothed tiger, and you see the person working next to you making a mistake because you're supposed to be teaching them, or somebody else was supposed to be teaching them how to create the proper fence, how to build it to keep out the danger and keep all of your families and your children and vulnerable people and elderly safe, your first instinct is going to tell you to tell that person they're doing it wrong, because that will keep everybody safe. In tribal times, you couldn't worry about how people felt about your criticism because the safety of the community was at stake. And everybody would have known that in their community. But here's the thing. In a tribal community, everybody would have grown up together. They wouldn't have moved across the country. They wouldn't have been able to change their friend group, couldn't divorce their families. They had to be in community. So many of us today are divorced from community. So many of us don't have community. So many of us aren't raised with the level of constructive feedback that keeps a community safe, so that when you know you're getting criticized, it's for the good of the community, because that's supposed to be what our survival instinct does. It defaults always to criticism because it's what keeps us alive. Now, the criticism can be subjective, right? There may be somebody that honestly doesn't know how to build a fence, and then they do it wrong, or they've been taught their whole lives. But that's not going to happen in a community, because around you are enough perspectives on how to build the fence correctly that the one subjective perspective on this is the right way, that is not the right way, that is going to endanger everybody, that is not going to happen, because everybody else who's been taught the correct way, they're going to come together in a unified voice and say, I'm sorry, but you're an anomaly. And that's not how we do this. We can't do this because it does not prove true. It doesn't keep the community safe. Maybe so-and-so tried that before, and that's what wiped out a whole generation, and a few survivors rebuilt it, right? There's all this logic behind why we criticize. It's our default mechanism. So going back to my hopes and dreams of people being kind and not ugly and not criticizing and not hurting our feelings is a lovely idea. And we want to promote that and teach that. But ultimately, it is not the human condition. The human brain, the survival instinct brain, is not made to make other people feel good. It is made to keep you safe. That's what it's made for. And the fastest way to keep you safe is by doing the thing that your community has proven can be proven in a court of law, a fact that will keep you safe. And over time, they were able to say, if you build the fence like this, it will be reinforced enough that the saber-toothed tiger can't get in. Why? Because we've tried it every other way, and we've made mistakes, and we've criticized each other to the point where we've created a system that works. Can it get in some way? Sure. Is there human error that could be a part of the equation? Absolutely. Can somebody be tired and leave the fence open or unlocked? Absolutely. So this is not 100%, but then again, the person that left it unlocked is going to be prepared for criticism. Why? Because they endangered the community. So we're thinking once again in a level of counterintuitiveness. Did I make up a word? So if we're actually looking at the human condition, at the survival brain, that is always our default, right? When high anxiety hits, when stress hits, when danger hits, when situations that are uncomfortable hits, our survival instinct defaults to criticizing. It's just what it does, because it feels like there's a threat. And again, we go back to our lovely Bob in accounting analogy. Your brain doesn't understand the difference between Bob in accounting criticizing you and a bear coming to eat you. And it goes right into defense, and it is going to go right into survival instinct so that it can protect you from the threat. Now, Bob in accounting is not going to eat you. So that threat doesn't hold weight anymore today. But your survival brain, this is the key, doesn't know the difference. Still, in 2025, it still thinks like you're living in community tribal times, where criticism meant something entirely different, where you grew up with Bob in accounting and you knew what was going to happen and you knew why it was going to happen. And you could reason it out logically and say, Bob sees me doing something he thinks is not okay. But he's also been trained by his whole life and his elders on how to do it the right way. And so if he says, I'm doing it wrong, it's probably because it's true. And so I'm not going to feel terrible about myself when Bob comes in and criticizes me about building my fence. But you haven't grown up with Bob in accounting in 2025. You don't know why he seems to think that you're endangering the community, the tribe of your office. But that's what his brain thinks. His brain sees you doing something that he doesn't think is correct, but he doesn't have a tribal community of generations of proving the thing that they've been doing for so long is factually done this way for the best of the community. He's working alone. His survival instinct is working alone. And he's coming at you with the same survival instinct of protecting a community and a tribe, but with no accurate information. His opinion is subjective, based on his own story and experience. He doesn't think you're doing something correctly. His survival instinct is saying to him, you're endangering the community. You're endangering the tribe. Is that really what's happening? Of course not. Is he really correct? Not today, not in 2025. What he's coming at you with the same level of criticism as protecting his family and your family is not the same thing, but it feels like it to him. He's the hero in his story and you're the villain. And vice versa. You're the hero in your story and he's the villain. So he's attacking you and he's a terrible person, right? Or he says a bunch of stuff and he what? Makes you feel bad about yourself. Bob doesn't make you feel bad about yourself. Bob thinks what he's doing is correct. And you, in 2025, have an entirely different opinion and experience of what is correct in your opinion. But neither one of you have a tribal community of elders that have been teaching you for years based on fact what actually is going to work in this situation. Because you're no longer building a fence and you're no longer in a community. And yet we still act like we live in tribal times. We still attack one another in the same manner with the same vehemence of protecting a community. Hey, and speaking of not being able to say no and the whole people-pleasing survival instinct, if you're new here, that is our archetype, the fox. And I've recently dropped our fox fawning survival instinct guide. And let's take a quick break so I can tell you all about that. We will be right back.
Look, I know that you know what's the matter with you. You can't set the boundary. You can't say no in the moment, or you can't remember the words that you practiced all night long until 2 a.m. But when the thing happens anyway and you get blindsided, you still can't remember the words. You need to start retraining your brain to actually make change in the moment, because that's when it matters. Grab your survival guide and get started on your self-coaching right now. It's on demand.
All right, let's get back into it. But we're talking about how somebody didn't use the proper settings on the copy machine. And then we go to lunch and we gossip about everybody else about how so-and-so doesn't know how to use the copy machine. And we dehumanize them. We don't even think about gossiping at lunch or coffee about another coworker, how harmful that is to the other person, because we're the hero in our story and everybody else is just an extra. And we don't see their humanity. We don't see the impact on their individual life that our words can have. So we don't take responsibility, number one, for how our words can potentially affect another human being. We just think it's okay to criticize because that's what our survival instinct tells us. Yeah, go ahead. Beat up Joni because she said something that your brain interpreted as snarky, that somebody else thinks is funny. But you took it as snarky, so therefore she's the enemy immediately. She's the villain, right? And now, because so many of us are dysfunctional in our conversations and our communication with each other in 2025, we cannot speak directly to Joni and say, hey, you said a thing and it sounded snarky to me. Were you being snarky? And then she goes, no, actually, I didn't realize that tone came out that way. That's just how I talk. But we take it as snarky. Therefore, we've identified that Joni's snarky. She's not snarky. You're interpreting her as snarky. Your brain is interpreting her as snarky based on your story and experience that has told you that that behavior is snarky. It's not. It's nothing. It's neutral. Because what you think is snarky, I may find flippin' hilarious. I may go, oh, there she goes again with her dry sense of humor. Gosh, she's funny. And you're like off in the shadows crying because Joni hurt your feelings. How is that fact? It's not fact. Joni said words. That's the fact. Joni said words. Your reaction to Joni is not her problem because she cannot walk around the world wondering how everyone's going to respond to how she says things. How is she supposed to tailor every single thing she says to each individual human because none of y'all grew up in a tribe together and you don't know each other. You don't know how each other ticks. You don't know your dispositions. You don't know since you were born that Joni's got a dry sense of humor and that it upsets Alicia over there, but Bob over there thinks it's hilarious. And so it's only your subjective opinion that matters now. You have no community to bounce the stuff off. You haven't grown up with these people and we default to criticism. So our first thought is she shouldn't be talking to me like that. Your brain thinks she's endangering the tribe by upsetting you. Well, is that true? There's not even a tribe to be talking about that you and Alicia are involved in. You know, even your office that your survival instinct is thinking is your tribe because they're the people you see every day. They're not your tribe. You can be fired at any moment. No one will think twice about it. You'll be lucky if somebody calls and checks on you. Your very best friend at work ghosts you because you're gone and they must assume that you've done something to deserve it or whatever. Like we default to ugly behavior immediately. And none of us challenge our thoughts. None of us challenge the words our brain offers us. None of us challenge the idea that this is not a tribe. I do not know these people from birth. We are not building a fence to save the lives of children and elderly in our community. And if somebody makes a mistake in the fence of their section they're building because one person can't do the whole thing, everyone's going to come down on them. And that person may not take it personally because they're learning how to build the fence properly. And there are facts that back it up that can be proven in a court of law. So here's the thing about what's going on in the world right now. And I'm going to be very blunt because it's true. Other people do not create how you feel. Other people do not create the words in your brain, the thoughts your brain offers you. I wish that everybody understood that our brain defaults to criticism first because it thinks it's doing the right thing to save a community that no longer exists. But they don't know that. Most people, 99% of the people walking around the world have no idea that what they're saying is an opinion, it's subjective, and it should be challenged every single time they think it before they open their mouths and share it. But we are so convinced that we are right. We don't even think about it. And if somebody else might have the gall to say that we're not right, we get our hackles up, we get defensive because that's what our survival instinct does. Now our survival instinct is entirely upside down. Not only are we not defending a tribe, we're not able to handle the criticism that is supposed to be meant for the good of the community based in fact. We don't know any of that. And so instead we get upset because how dare they tell us that we're wrong? Because it's a one-on-one situation based in nothing. It's two humans with thoughts their brain offers them, and they're so emotionally immature. And believe me, I've been there. So that's why I can talk about this because I've been there. I've been this person and I've evolved from it. And now I don't do this as best I can. If I do, I try to have self-reflection. I try to take self-inventory and I pay attention to how people respond to me because I can tell now if I've said something that upsets you. Do I know today that I don't cause your feelings and I don't cause the words that your brain offers you? Yes, I do. But I also know that you don't know thought work and that you're probably an emotional child and you're going to feel like I hurt your feelings. That's what's going on. And I still get my feelings hurt. Of course I do. because my survival instinct doesn't appreciate it when someone criticizes me. And when I haven't grown up in a tribe around all the people that are doing the criticizing, my brain just assumes that they're the enemy and that I have to defend myself against them because my brain literally thinks they're a bear who's going to eat me, even if they're just like, I don't know, criticizing a typo, right? And then I spin off into survival instincts, whatever my dominant one is. And as I've shared a lot, mine is the owl, the freeze. And then I'm not able to say the thing in the moment. I'm not able to say, to Bob in accounting, I'm sorry, but I didn't ask for your opinion, but thank you for sharing your opinion. And I don't have to allow the thought that runs through my head immediately, he must be right and I'm a horrible person. And I messed it all up, because that's what your brain is going to say to you. Your brain is going to say, you have made a mistake that's going to endanger the entire community, and all the children in the community are going to get eaten, and all the elderly people, or all the marginalized and vulnerable people in your community are in danger because of your mistake. You need to take it seriously and shore up that mistake. And you can do that in a community without taking it personally, because you understand the stakes and you understand the person who's bringing it to your attention, and you understand why. And you have a group of elder tribes people that have been doing it for generations, right? Passing down knowledge that they know works. So you're not going to take that personal. You're going to say, right, show me how, because you trust that person and you know that they know what they're talking about. But Bob in accounting, Joni at the front desk, or whatever, you don't have that trust with them. You don't have a lifetime of knowledge. You don't have oral tradition passed down from generation to generation that tells you, in a court of law, I can prove that this way of doing something protects the community because we tried it every other way. And this is what's worked. And this is what we've learned. And it can be proven in a court of law. Why? Because if I build it that way, the saber-toothed tiger comes in. And sadly, in order to prove it in a court of law in a tribal time, people got eaten. So the stakes were high. Nobody's getting eaten in your office. Nobody's getting eaten in your office. And yet we are all behaving as if we'd lived in those times. And we let our survival instincts run rampant. We run rampant. We don't ever consider, why is my brain offering me a thought that is entirely horrible about another person? And then why do I have the nerve to open my mouth and share that with Betty in the cubicle next to me? And then that gets spread around, and now everybody thinks Joni in the front desk is a horrible human being. And then Joni takes it personal because, she is a human being and nobody's treating her like one. She's just the enemy, right? And she feels horrible about herself. And then she stops doing a good job. She feels attacked and she starts quiet quitting. And then it gets worse. And eventually she's gone. None of that needs to happen. But we don't consider our thoughts. We don't have the humility to potentially be wrong. And newsflash, most of us are wrong, because what we think is not fact. What we think cannot be proven in court of law. It is absolutely 100% subjective opinion. So opinion is neither right nor wrong. It's just words. So Bob in accounting, the fact of the matter of the circumstance is that Bob in accounting comes to your office and he says words. That's the facts. Not he was awful, he was this, he was that. Those are all subjective opinions based on your story and experience and how you interpret the world, and your lack of understanding of how your brain works, and your lack of understanding of how you need to challenge your own thoughts, because it's your thoughts about the words Bob says that creates your feelings. It's not Bob's words that create your feelings. And 99% of us blame Bob for how we feel. And that's emotional immaturity. An emotional adult is going to say, wow, Bob has energy around this thing. I wonder why. Let me ask him. Hey, Bob, why does this bother you so much? Why do you feel like the way I'm doing stuff is wrong? What's at stake for you? Because his survival instinct is telling him that the kids and the elderly are in danger. because of your typo. And then he has energy around that because he is going to fix the fence, right? And show you how to fix the fence. And he does it pretty, powerfully or in a manner that you may find intimidating because for him, the stakes are high and he doesn't see that. He's not challenging his thoughts. He's not challenging his words. He's not challenging why he thinks it's okay to come into your office and criticize you as if lives were at stake over a typo. It's a disproportionate reaction to whatever it is that you did and vice versa. And so now we just have a bunch of emotional children running around mad at each other. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. It's not getting better. And why? Because we don't live in tribes. We don't live in community. We're a whole bunch of villains running around blaming each other and mad about this and mad about that. And we're not having conversations anymore. And we're not finding the common denominator facts of the matter about why something matters, why something's important. We're just running rampant with our opinions. And we have ugly opinions about other people because why? Because of how we were raised and what we were told to believe by our elders. Except it wasn't like a full community. It was choosing this, that, and the other because we're not in danger. We're not forced to be together and get along. We can decide what community we want to be in based on what we believe. We're not forced to be with other people that have different opinions or that came up with opinions together collectively for the good of the group. Today, we can decide who we want to hate, why we want to hate them, what we want to believe. And for us, it's fact. It's true. I hate this person because blah, blah, blah. And for me, it's absolutely like the truth. It is biblical, true. And if you don't agree with me, you're the enemy. You're the tribe, down the street. I'm trying to protect my tribe from who unleashes the saber-toothed tigers on us 3 times a year. That's why we have to have the fence. And nobody in your community is the person from the other community who's trying to take you out or to get your resources or whatever. It doesn't exist, but it does in 2025 because we don't know who is trying to take our resources and who we need to protect ourselves from. And the truth is nobody is because there's no resources to protect. You're in an office. What are you going to do? Hoard the copy paper? Is that what's going to save the children? No, we don't live in any logic right now that actually is proportionate to how our brains function as creature. The things that our brain tells us that's going to keep us alive is not true anymore. It is in moments of a bus coming at you and you need to jump out of the way. Yeah, that's when your survival instinct works. Or if someone's attacking you, yes, you're in danger, but not Joni at the front desk or Bob in accounting. And you're ready to quit your job over this nonsense, right? No, you have to begin to understand that other people do not create your feelings. The thoughts that your brain offers you that you accept without any challenge. You're willing to challenge all the people out there and tell them they're wrong. You're not willing to challenge your own brain's thoughts. That is what 100% true gospel for you, right? How dare they? They should do this. They should think this. They should say this. They should behave this way. No, they shouldn't. They're going to behave how their brain tells them to behave. Your emotional maturity is to challenge your thoughts about it and ask yourself, why are you thinking this? Are you really in danger? Does it matter what this person truly says? Does it really, really matter? Or are you giving it so much power in your life that you're allowing it to create horrible feelings within yourself? Because thoughts are not real. If Bob comes in and criticizes me, my first thought could be, wow, he's right. I'm a terrible person. I can't get my job done. Why can't I get anything right? Blah, blah, blah. Or I can start to learn about, what my coaches teach, the thought ladder, incremental changes in our thoughts that are 5% nicer, 10% nicer to ourselves. And I can say, he's got energy around a thing. He must think that's important. Maybe I could get curious. Why does Bob think that's important? Let me ask him. Hey, Bob, you have a lot of energy around, me making a typo. Can you tell me why that is so important to you? And then he's going to tell you a story that may be very interesting about how he sees your typo endangering what he sees as community or tribe that he needs to protect from the saber-toothed tigers. And if you can interpret it in that way, and he's never going to know his brain's doing that. You can try to explain it to him, but most people don't want to hear it. Most people don't want to hear that they have to challenge their own thoughts. Only people that are interested in becoming emotionally mature and owning their own feelings and being so with it that people can say and do anything around them. Obviously, we're not talking about actions that cause harm, but people's words don't have to cause harm. They're just words. They cause harm when other people allow those words to generate thoughts in their brains they just accept without pushing back, challenging, or questioning, that create feelings in their own body, because thoughts create feelings that cause them to take action. And sometimes that action is immensely harmful, the results that come from that action. And that's because people aren't challenging their thoughts. Somebody can gin up energy in them, get them excited about something because they're like-minded. And when someone's like-minded, you feel like you're part of a tribe. It feels good. It feels good to be accepted. That's why we love to find echo chambers and we love to be around people that think like us because it makes us feel like we're in the tribe. We found our people. Except when everyone gathers around hate, if you hate the same group, right? Your brain has identified the tribe down the street that's letting out the saber-toothed tigers. Are you asking, is that group really going to put the children and the elderly and the marginalized in our community in danger? Or are we just gathering around a like-minded vision that happens to be hateful of certain groups of people? People we do not even know. People we did not grow up with. People that we do not have proof that they have unleashed the saber-toothed tigers on our community over generations. And we know we can prove in a court of law that they are attacking us and taking our resources. And we have to protect them with our fence. And we have to build the fence properly based on all of this data collected that is factual. We don't think about any of this. All we do is hear somebody's words and identify them as either part of our tribe because we agree with them based on nothing. Your brain just offers you words. Oh yeah, that sounds right. Is it right? No, there's no right. It's all subjective. Like, how can you determine who you should hate in the world if you have absolutely no data, no facts, no nothing, just a feeling? Ooh, that feels right. Let's hate that person. Really? Based on what? Where's your proof? Where's your data? Where's your facts that can be proven in a court of law that this group of people are going to endanger your tribe to the point where your children and your elderly are at risk? Or is it just conjecture? Are you making up stories in your head about how maybe these are the consequences that are going to happen because so-and-so told me that? Or a group of people told me that because they're an echo chamber and they all agree with each other. That's lovely. You know what? You know what's more interesting to me and that I lean into today that gives me joy in my life is curiosity and asking questions. Not only of other people, but of myself. Why did I just have that thought? What happened in my life that made me think that thought? Where did that come from? Why does that thought make me feel X, Y, and Z? Is there any fact behind it? Can I prove this is true, one way or the other, whatever it is? I don't care what the thought is, right? I'm not talking about specific opinions other than, some stuff that we know about, like we know what's kind. We know what's empathetic. We know what causes harm, whether other people are responsible for their own feelings or not. We know what comes out of our mouths and we know where it comes from. If we ask our brains, where did that come from? We can come up with a story that tells us why we think that's true, why that opinion, subjective opinion, why our brain is telling us it's true. And then it causes energy in our body, which are feelings. And we just every single day, your brain is offered 60,000 thoughts a day, and you automatically believe almost all of them, probably all of them. You don't question any of the thoughts your brain offers you throughout the day. You just have the thought, which creates a feeling automatically, and then you do something about it, or you don't do something about it. Because now if it's something to do with conflict or challenge or tension or pressure or feeling intimidated, all of these things that create high energy in our bodies flip us immediately into survival instincts, whatever your dominant one is. If you don't know the dominant one, you need to take my quiz, charliehornesscoaching.com/quiz, and find out what your dominant one is. Because sometimes we think we know and we're not right. Again, we don't know until we know. You want to prove what your dominant survival instinct is? Take the quiz. You'll get a result. Again, it's subjective based on my opinion and my education and my training and my doctorate and my research. But there's a lot more there that we could lean into based on facts and research than just thinking, oh, this is me. So it's closer, I would say, to fact, but not 100% because, it comes from me and everything has my opinion on it that I create. And you can discover that. What is your dominant from my perspective? If you trust my belief system, then here you go. And then you can see what your reaction is in the moment and what you're going to do when your brain thinks you're under attack and how you're going to respond. And then if you want to stop doing that, simply, if you're ready to make these changes, I'm not promising it's easy. There's work to do. But if you want to do things in the moment when you feel the tension, the stress, the thing that's been frustrating you your whole life, like not being able to say no when somebody obviously is encroaching on your boundaries. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to say no and have problems saying no. Otherwise, you just say no, right? There's some sort of pressure that happens. And then you fall into people pleasing or not being able to stop the yes reaction before your brain can even catch up with you, or have your own opinion because you're afraid people in the room aren't going to like you. Why? Because you're going to get criticized for messing up the fence. And while we're on the subject, let me remind you, if you have taken my quiz, charliehornesscoaching.com/quiz, and you received the Fox result, which is our archetype for people pleasing, I just want to take another quick break to remind you about the brand new survival guide for our foxes, which is the fawning survival instinct. So let's take a break so I can tell you about that and see you in just a minute.
I don't need to tell you that you struggle with boundaries or you struggle with saying no in the moment. You practice all night long till 2 a.m., but then you go home and regret and ruminate. You don't need to be told what the matter is. You're smart. You have a PhD in you. What you need to learn is the how to in the moment, how to say no, how to have the boundary. This is the problem. Nobody out there is teaching how to not take it personal in the moment. You can get the answers immediately. Get your survival guide, click the link below, and start your journey right now.
So let's get into it. You care. I used to care. I did. I cared so much that I was a miserable human being. And today, I don't. I don't care. Anyone can say anything to me, even if it's hateful, even if it's ugly. Anyone can say anything to me, and I can use my own self-coaching that my coach taught me so that I can coach myself in the moment, and I can either stop feeling bad or I don't have to feel bad to begin with. And I don't have to sit around and tell myself that I don't know how to do something. Everybody else does it better than me. I don't have to do that anymore. And guess what? I don't do it anymore. This is not conjecture. I have proof that I can prove in a court of law that if you yell in my face, I probably either A, won't care, or B, will catch myself exceptionally faster than I used to, exceptionally to the point that it changed my life. Understand why I care and then stop caring, because I understand how my brain works and I understand how your brain works. And I can identify now when I was emotionally immature and what emotional maturity feels like to me. Not only in the moment, now I don't say yes if I don't want to say yes. Why? Because I can identify that you think it's a good idea to ask me to do something that's not okay. You do not identify other people's boundaries. You think a boundary is okay that I think is not okay. And I don't have to get mad at you for that. You truly think it's okay to ask me to work your double shift when you know I have to go to a wedding, but you're being such a intimidating jerk about it that I take it personal and I'm afraid of how you're going to think of me. So I say yes before my brain even catches up and remembers that I have a wedding I have to go to. And now I'm resentful and angry at you. Meanwhile, what I don't understand is that you think it's okay to ask somebody to work for you. And maybe you don't even know I have a wedding. You just need somebody to cover. Okay. So what if I ask you, hey, why do you think it's okay? I've got a wedding. And then they, double down because they don't care what you have to do. Nobody cares about what other people have to do. We think other people should care about our life. Newsflash. Very few people in the world actually care about your life. There are people in the world. In my life, it's my mother, and it's my husband, and it's my sister, and my brother, and my father. And now it's my children because I'm training them to give a shit about other people. But I don't expect them to give a shit about everybody's life because they cannot juggle that. That is going to emotionally drain them like nobody's business. They cannot worry about everybody else's feelings and everybody else's schedule. They have to trust that other human beings are going to have to take responsibility for their own lives and their own feelings. And that takes work. And it's wonderful work because it changes your life. Listen, this stuff it's not complicated. You can implement this and change how you feel immediately when you understand why your brain does this, why other people's brains do this, and why it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what Bob yells at you about. It doesn't matter what his opinion is on how you should be doing things because it's not real. It's an opinion. It's subjective. His brain literally made it up in the moment and said, oh, Charlie's horrible because she made a typo. And now everybody is going to think we're the worst company in the world and I'm going to lose my job. What does he care about losing his job? That's what he cares about. He doesn't care about your typo. He doesn't care about you. It could be anybody making the mistake. He would have the exact same reaction. And without having any emotional maturity, he would say the exact same thing to the exact same person, whether or not that person actually knows what they're doing. It doesn't matter. You just happen to be the person standing in front of him that made the typo. And then you give him all of your power by letting him decide how you feel. When are you going to stop letting other people determine how your day is going to go? That's my question for you this week. I want you to think about that. Why do you let other people determine whether you're going to have a good day? And I want you to stop doing that. If you would like to stop doing that, I have survival guides for each of my survival instinct archetypes. And at any time, you can grab it and learn how to self-coach yourself in these moments. You don't need to wait for my schedule. You don't need to wait for me to tell you what to do. You don't need to know what to do because you know what to do. You are a specialist on you. But I can show you what's happening in your brain and other people's brains so that you can stop feeling terrible. And then you can make the decisions that are best for you because I don't know what's best for you. But I know how to tell you to stop exactly step by step, giving other people the power that ruins your day. So if you want to stop having bad days most of the time, then you need to figure out how to self-coach. So you go to charliehornesscoaching.com/guides, find your guide or take the quiz to identify what your dominant survival instinct is. And then let's get started. And, you can schedule with me if you want for one-on-one coaching if you're having trouble with this. But that is not like an immediate quick purchase. That is not expensive. Obviously, I have very high ticket coaching packages because I can't coach everybody. But that's available too. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching, just apply on my website. However, get the guide and you can start changing your life today if you're interested. If you want to stop having terrible days because other people determine that for you, then get my guide. All right, friends, I will see you next time. Have an amazing day.